Imagine, if you will, a city shimmering on a lake. Canals crisscross its heart, and long causeways stretch out to connect it to the mainland. This was Tenochtitlan, the capital of the mighty Aztec Empire. A powerful emperor ruled from his grand palace, while priests carried out sacred rituals in towering temples. Merchants bustled through busy marketplaces, trading goods from all across Mesoamerica. The Aztecs were, without a doubt, masters of their world. Yet their reign was about to come to an end. From across the sea, a new threat appeared. Spanish conquistadors, driven by a hunger for gold and glory, marched toward Tenochtitlan. Leading them was Hernán Cortés, a cunning and ruthless commander. His army was small, but he held a secret weapon, Malintzin, a brilliant translator who would become key to his strategy. With her help, Cortés would exploit the empire's deepest weaknesses and set in motion its downfall. The fate of the Aztecs now hung in the balance. The year was 1519, and the stage was set for an epic clash of civilizations. The Aztecs were fierce warriors, no question about it. They dominated central Mexico and expanded their empire through relentless conquest. Their armies were vast, disciplined, and armed with weapons made of obsidian and wood. They practiced ritual sacrifice to appease their gods, powerful forces that shaped every part of their lives. They believed in Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, and honored Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity. Religion wasn't just important, it was central to their existence. Tenochtitlan stood as a testament to their power. The city was, honestly, an engineering marvel. It had a complex web of canals and causeways, and chinampas, those floating gardens, provided a steady food supply. The Aztecs were skilled architects and astronomers, building magnificent temples and palaces. They even created a calendar more accurate than the one used in Europe at the time. But despite their achievements, the empire had its flaws. The Aztecs demanded tribute from the peoples they conquered, and that bred resentment and unrest. These simmering tensions would, eventually, prove to be their undoing. Hernán Cortés was a man driven by ambition. He craved gold, glory, and the chance to make a name for himself. In 1519, he set sail from Cuba, a rogue expedition. Defying orders, he aimed to claim new lands for Spain. Cortés landed in Mexico with just over 500 soldiers. They brought horses, cannons, and steel, terrifying to the locals. But his greatest asset was Malintzin, a young indigenous woman. She spoke Mayan and Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. As his interpreter, she helped him communicate and manipulate. Through her, he learned of resentment toward Aztec rule, and that was the opportunity he needed. Cortés was a master strategist. He knew he couldn't conquer the Aztec Empire alone, so he turned to the Aztecs' many rivals. He forged alliances with tribes desperate to break free. The Tlaxcalans, longtime Aztec enemies, joined him. Cortés promised freedom from Aztec rule. His indigenous allies grew in number. They marched toward Tenochtitlan and brought vital knowledge of the land and enemy. The balance of power had shifted. The seeds of rebellion had been sown. So the Spanish and their allies marched inland, pushing forward with determination. Eventually, they reached the heart of the Aztec world, Tenochtitlan, and honestly, the city was a sight to behold. It was even grander than they had imagined. Canals shimmered in the sunlight and temples rose high above the skyline. The Spanish were completely awestruck by its beauty, but at the same time, they were wary of its defenses. You see, the city was built right on a lake, and it was only accessible by narrow causeways. That made it pretty difficult to attack, which didn't go unnoticed. Montezuma, the Aztec emperor, greeted Cortés with caution. He had received ominous prophecies, warnings that spoke of the arrival of powerful gods. Montezuma wasn't sure what to make of the Spanish. Were they gods or invaders? In the end, he chose to welcome them as guests. But that would prove to be a fatal mistake. The Spanish weren't content to just be guests. They craved gold, they craved power, and they would stop at nothing to seize it. Tensions in Tenochtitlan quickly escalated. The Spanish grew bolder in their demands. They wanted gold, and they demanded submission to their king. They even desecrated sacred Aztec temples, which, as you can imagine, outraged the Aztec people. The city rose up against these unwelcome guests. Caught in the middle of it all was Montezuma. He tried to calm the rebellion, but in a tragic twist, he was killed by his own people. The Spanish now found themselves trapped in the very heart of the city. Cortés realized just how bad things had gotten. His only choice was to flee Tenochtitlan under the cover of night. But the retreat was a disaster. The Spanish were weighed down by treasure, and the Aztecs attacked them relentlessly. Many were killed, and others drowned in the lake. This night of horror became known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. Cortés and a handful of survivors managed to escape. They were battered, but not broken. And they would return, seeking revenge. Cortés regrouped. He rebuilt his forces and forged new alliances. A year later, he returned to Tenochtitlan, this time fully prepared for a siege. He had cannons to bombard the city and brigantines to control the lake. The siege of Tenochtitlan was brutal. It dragged on for months. The Aztecs fought with incredible bravery, but they were outmatched. Starvation and disease had already taken a heavy toll. Smallpox, brought by the Spanish, swept through the city. It killed thousands. This invisible enemy proved to be more deadly than any weapon. The Spanish and their allies tightened their grip. They cut off supplies. They attacked the city's defenses again and again. Finally, on August 13, 1521, Tenochtitlan fell. The once mighty Aztec Empire lay in ruins. A new era had begun. The fall of Tenochtitlan marked the end of an empire. The Spanish, under Cortés, established their dominance and built Mexico City atop the ruins of the Aztec capital. They imposed their language, their religion, and their culture. The indigenous population suffered immensely. They were subjected to forced labor, and disease continued to ravage their communities. Their way of life was forever changed, and yet, the Aztec legacy did not vanish. It survived in the faces and voices of the Mexican people. It lived on in their traditions, in their food, and in their language. Even today, you can still hear traces of Nahuatl, the Aztec language, throughout Mexico. The spirits of the Aztecs still whisper through the ruins of their temples. Their story reminds us of a glorious past, a tragic fall, and a culture that, despite everything, refused to be extinguished. The eagle may have fallen, but its shadow still stretches across the land.